When my little girl came home from her cousin's birthday party, her pink dress wrinkled and her eyes swollen from crying, I knew something terrible had happened. But I never imagined the truth, that my own sister had locked her in a closet because she thought my daughter wasn't pretty enough to be in the party photos. Let me take you through what happened that day, and I promise this story will stay with you. I'm Harper Lane, a 33-year-old single mom, raising my sweet little Lily on my own. Life hasn't been easy, but I've always tried to give her love and confidence. So when I got an invitation to my sister Vanessa's daughter's birthday party, I hesitated. Vanessa and I have always had a complicated relationship. Even as kids, she loved competing with me. Who looked better, who got more attention, who achieved more. Now, as adults, it seemed nothing had changed. But I thought maybe for Lily's sake, I could let the past go. Maybe family could mean something after all. I smiled, helped Lily into her favorite pink dress, and styled her hair as best I could. She was nervous but excited, clutching a small gift in her hands. I promised her I'd be back in 2 hours and gave her a hug before dropping her off. The party started like any other, music, balloons, laughter. But I could already feel the tension in the air, even from a distance. Vanessa greeted us with a wide smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her daughter, Aubrey, ran past Lily and immediately started showing off her new outfit. Lily's hand-me-down dress suddenly felt out of place. I tried to reassure her with a squeeze of her hand, but Vanessa's sharp eyes caught mine, and I knew my presence wasn't welcomed. I left Lily in the party room, giving her one last kiss on the cheek, and told her to have fun. I had no idea what was coming. 2 hours later, I parked outside, ready to see my daughter's happy face. Instead, I found her sitting quietly in the car, clutching her gift bag, her eyes red and puffy. She didn't even run to me. My heart sank. "What happened, Lily?" I asked softly, kneeling beside her. She hesitated, her small voice trembling. "Mom, they told me to stay hidden." My mind raced, trying to understand. How could Vanessa, my sister, do something so cruel? I held Lily close, my anger rising, but also an overwhelming need to protect her. That day, I realized something had to change. I promised myself then and there that Lily would never feel small or invisible in our family again. This was only the beginning. Lily stepped into the brightly decorated living room, her small pink dress feeling heavy on her shoulders. The balloons bobbed above, the music was loud, and kids ran around laughing. But it didn't take long for the excitement to fade. Aubrey, Vanessa's 9-year-old daughter, spotted Lily immediately, and her friends followed, pointing and whispering. "Why is she wearing that old dress?" One of the girls giggled. "She looks weird," another added. Lily's cheeks burned, and she clutched her small gift tighter. She tried to smile, tried to join the games, but every look felt like a tiny stab. Vanessa noticed immediately. Her perfectly styled hair and sharp outfit made her look untouchable, and she had no patience for anything that didn't fit her idea of perfection. "Lily, darling, that dress doesn't match the party," Vanessa said sharply, her tone tight and controlling. "We can't have the photos ruined. You don't want everyone to see how plain you look, do you?" Lily's eyes widened. She didn't understand. Plain? She had tried so hard, wore her favorite dress, and now she felt like she had done something wrong just by existing. "Go wait in the guest room closet," Vanessa continued, her voice cold but calm. "Once we're done with the pictures, you can come out. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Confused and afraid, Lily obeyed. She quietly walked down the hallway, her small feet padding on the carpet, and slipped into the dark closet. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Immediately, the sounds of the party outside became muffled, then distant. She pressed herself against the wall, hugging her knees, trying to understand why she was being punished for simply being herself. Through the thin walls, she could still hear the laughter, the music, and the clicking of cameras. Each giggle and cheer cut deeper than any words. She could imagine the photos being taken without her, smiling faces, arms around each other, memories she wasn't allowed to make. Hours seemed to stretch endlessly. The closet, once just a storage space, felt like a cage, holding her apart from the world she wanted so badly to join. She tried to make herself small, whispering little prayers, wishing the adults would realize it was just a dress, just a birthday, just her. But no one came. She peeked through the small gap in the door, but only shadows moved in the lighted room beyond. Finally, after what felt like forever, the door opened. A familiar face appeared, the maid, with a look of worry and apology. "Lily, Harper is here early. Come on out, sweetie." Relief and shame washed over her at the same time. She stepped out slowly, wiping tears from her cheeks, clutching her untouched gift bag. The bright party room suddenly seemed strange and unfair, a place that should have been fun but had turned into a memory of humiliation. As they left, Lily glanced back at the closet one last time. It wasn't just a dark space behind a door. It was a place where she had learned fear, obedience, and the cruel way adults sometimes see children. She held her mother's hand tightly, grateful to be rescued, yet aware the pain lingered. I parked the car in the driveway, my heart full of anticipation to see Lily's excited face. But when I opened the door, I saw her sitting quietly in the passenger seat, clutching her small gift bag, so tightly it looked like it might tear. Her pink dress was wrinkled, her cheeks streaked with tears, and her eyes were red and puffy. My chest tightened instantly. "Lily, what happened, sweetie?" I asked gently, kneeling to meet her at eye level. She didn't respond at first. She just hugged the gift bag closer, staring out the window as if the outside world might be safer than talking to me. I reached for her hand, rubbing it slowly. "You can tell me, Lily. Whatever happened, it's okay." Her small voice barely rose above a whisper. "They told me to stay hidden, Mommy." My heart stopped. "Hidden? What do you mean?" "They said I wasn't pretty enough for the pictures, that I should just stay in the closet until it was over," she murmured, tears falling again. "I was scared, Mommy. I just stayed there." I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight as her body shook with quiet sobs. I felt a mix of rage, sorrow, and helplessness all at once. How could Vanessa, her own aunt, do something like this to a child? How could anyone think locking up an 8-year-old girl because of how she looks is acceptable? We drove home in silence, Lily resting her head against the window, still clutching the gift bag, while I sat gripping the steering wheel, trying to hold back tears of my own. I replayed the image of her alone in that dark closet, hearing the laughter, the music, the camera clicks, while she was trapped and invisible. My mind wouldn't let it go. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, brushing the messy strands of hair from her face, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, Harper. The party was wonderful. Lily seemed to have a great time." Vanessa chirped, her voice sugary sweet. There was no hint of the cruelty she had shown today. No acknowledgement of what had really happened. My stomach twisted with disgust. I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Something inside me had shifted, though. The anger that had been quietly simmering all these years boiled to the surface. I promised myself that Lily would never be hurt like that again, never be humiliated for her looks, her dress, or her very being. Lily lay asleep beside me that night, peaceful for the first time since the party, unaware of the storm building in my mind. I knew one thing with certainty. Vanessa would never have the chance to make Lily feel small again. I would protect her, not with empty words, but with actions. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of clarity. This wasn't just about the party. It was about standing up for my daughter, teaching her she is enough, and ensuring that anyone who tried to dim her light would face the consequences. Tonight, I made a vow silently but firmly. My sister would never have the power to hurt Lily again. And I would see to it that justice was served, in a way Vanessa would never forget. The next day, I couldn't shake the image of Lily in that closet. I needed to know exactly what had happened, and more importantly, I needed to understand Vanessa's motives. Quietly, I started asking around, careful not to let Vanessa know I was digging. I spoke with a few parents who had attended the party, casually trying to gather details without raising suspicion. One of them, Mrs. Dorsey, a kind woman who always had a soft spot for Lily, hesitated before speaking. "Harper, I didn't want to say anything, but..." Vanessa made a joke about Lily in front of everyone. She said Lily was plain, just like her mom. Everyone laughed, and poor Lily, she just froze. It was awful. My stomach turned. I had suspected Vanessa's cruelty, but hearing it confirmed in someone else's words made it real. I remembered all the times Vanessa had subtly belittled me as a child, always competing, always comparing. I remembered my favorite dress, the one I had saved for months, shredded by Vanessa under the guise of making it look better. Even then, she had found ways to make me feel small, insecure, and unworthy. Memories flooded back. The competitions, the sharp comments, the hidden jabs that left marks deeper than any cut or bruise. Vanessa had always been obsessed with appearances, perfection, and control. I realized now that this wasn't just about Lily's dress or her hair. It was about power, about Vanessa proving she could dictate how everyone, even children, should look and feel. But as my anger grew, I felt something else rising inside me. a sense of purpose. I didn't want to yell at Vanessa or make a scene. That wouldn't fix anything, and it wouldn't protect Lily in the long run. I wanted something more lasting, something that would shake Vanessa's world in the same way she had shaken Lily's heart. I began to plan carefully, thinking through every move, every opportunity to expose the cracks in Vanessa's flawless image. I remembered the way she flaunted her perfect life, her perfect marriage, her perfect daughter. It was all a show, and I knew from past experience that the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. I took notes, mentally cataloging moments, words, and behaviors that could be used strategically. I thought about the parents, the neighbors, anyone who had seen Vanessa's true colors but had been too polite or afraid to speak. Each piece of information was a small key, something that could unlock the truth and reveal the person behind the polished facade. For the first time in a long while, I felt in control. I wasn't just a mother defending her child. I was a strategist, quietly preparing to restore balance. Vanessa had tried to make Lily feel small and invisible, but I was determined to make sure the tables turned. This wasn't about petty revenge. It was about justice, about showing that cruelty and obsession with appearances always leave cracks, even in the most carefully curated lives. I was ready. I would protect Lily, and I would make Vanessa face the consequences, in a way that she could neither ignore nor escape. Vanessa and Grant always looked like the perfect family when they stepped out together. Grant, with his calm suit and polite smile, was the kind of man people trusted at charity events and PDA meetings. Vanessa loved that. She soaked up the compliments about their home, their daughter, and their social life. To the neighborhood, they were untouchable. To me, they were a carefully arranged picture, one that Vanessa had painted over every crack for years. After learning what happened to Lily, I started watching them more closely. I listened when Mrs. Dorsey spoke about the party and mentioned, almost in passing, that Grant had no idea Vanessa could be so cruel. "Grant thinks she's perfect," she said, shaking her head. "He wouldn't believe anything like this." That line stayed with me. If Grant really did not know, then the truth might matter to him. If he cared enough, the house of cards could wobble. Vanessa's social media was full of glossy photos, family dinners, smiling faces, vacations. She posted about blessings and family values, always careful to show the world the version of life she wanted everyone to believe. She bragged about her marriage like it was a trophy she polished daily. "We're so blessed," she'd comment under pictures, and people nodded along, liking and praising. No one saw the days she sat like a blank statue in the kitchen after dinner, parsing faces and planning how to keep the image clean. I began to collect small truths, not out of spite, but because I needed proof that her perfection was a mask. I wrote down phrases I overheard, the names of people who had witnessed her cruelty, tiny moments that added up. Mrs. Dorsey's words were one piece. The grocery store cashier's quiet comment about Vanessa's temper was another. A neighbor who'd seen Vanessa throw away Harper's old family photo was another small, sharp memory. Each detail seemed almost petty alone, but together they formed a pattern I could not ignore. I also watched Grant from a distance. He was kind to the elderly man who walked his dog and polite to other parents. He seemed genuinely unaware of the storm beneath his roof. I thought of how painful it would be for him to learn that the woman he loved could behave this way to a child. It wasn't that I wanted to hurt him. I wanted the truth to be known. I wanted people who respected him to know what Vanessa had done. Maybe then she would understand the damage she caused, beyond her selfies and carefully curated captions. Every piece of information I gathered went into a small notebook I kept hidden. I wrote dates, times, and short descriptions. Who said what, who saw what. My plan was not to humiliate or to destroy for the thrill of it. I wanted the truth to crack Vanessa's perfect image, so she could no longer hide behind it. I wanted accountability, and I wanted to protect Lily from that kind of judgment and cruelty in the future. With each entry, my resolve hardened. The next steps would require patience and care, but I felt steadier than I had in years. Vanessa had built a life on appearances. Now those appearances would have to answer for the hurt they had caused. That I was still collecting small truths when I stumbled onto something much bigger. While talking to an old family friend at the market, I mentioned the party and how Vanessa had humiliated Lily. The friend frowned, then hesitated before saying, "You remember the house your mother left? There were always whispers about that will." My heart skipped. I had thought the home dispute was settled years ago, but the way she said it made me listen harder. I reached out to Mr. Alvarez, a notary who had known our mother and had handled family documents long ago. He was retired now, but he agreed to meet me at a tiny cafe near his home. His hands trembled slightly as he opened an old file I had brought. Photocopies of documents I had dug up, the will I'd been told about, and signatures that once felt like the last word of our family. He sipped his coffee, scanned the papers, and then looked up with a slow, serious expression. "Harper," he said quietly, "this signature isn't right." His voice held the weight of years. I asked him to explain. He pointed to certain flourishes in the handwriting, the way letters connected, subtle details a normal person would never notice. He had seen hundreds of signatures in his career and could tell when something had been signed by someone else. Mr. Alvarez told me he believed, with a professional certainty, that the will had been forged. I felt a cold sink into me. The memory of my mother's warm kitchen, the little garden she loved, and the plans I had imagined for that house all rushed back. I had been told it was Vanessa's now, and I had accepted it out of a mixture of grief and practicality. I had never suspected the truth. To learn that my sister might have taken what was rightfully mine by forging my name felt like a fresh cut. Mr. Alvarez agreed to write a short note confirming his opinion. Something simple that said he believed the signature was not genuine. It wasn't a court verdict, but it was enough to prove the claim needed investigation. I left the cafe with the folded paper in my bag and a new sense of power that felt strange and dangerous. For years, Vanessa had built her life on taking what she wanted: attention, praise, control. This was more than attention. It was a theft that had shaped my life. I thought about how to use the proof. My anger flared, hot and sharp, but so did something steadier: resolve. I could confront her with accusations and cause a scene, or I could use this leverage carefully, in a way that would make people see who Vanessa really was. The idea of exposing her to Grant, to the neighbors, to anyone who admired their family image, began to take shape in my mind. Holding that little note from Mr. Alvarez, I imagined Vanessa's perfectly arranged life wobbling. I didn't want to destroy for the sake of cruelty. I wanted justice, for my mother's memory, for Lily's dignity, and for the truth to be known. For the first time since the party, I felt I had a real chance to change things. I arranged to meet Vanessa at a quiet cafe, far from the eyes of friends and family. I wanted this to be private, controlled, and focused. When she arrived, smiling as if nothing had happened, my stomach twisted. The fake cheer in her eyes made my blood boil, but I kept my composure. "Harper, so good to see you. How's Lily?" she said, her voice light and patronizing. I ignored the greeting and sat down across from her. "I need to talk to you about the party," I began calmly. Vanessa's smile faltered just a little, though she masked it quickly. "Oh, that little thing?" she said, waving her hand dismissively. "She's too sensitive, that's all. You worry too much." I felt my jaw tighten. "Too sensitive?" I repeated, my voice low but steady. "Lily came home upset because you humiliated her. You told her to stay hidden, like she wasn't good enough to be seen. That's not sensitivity, Vanessa. That's cruelty." She laughed lightly, leaning back in her chair. "Oh, come on, Harper. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. It's just a birthday party. She'll get over it." I reached into my bag and pulled out the folded paper from Mr. Alvarez. I slid it across the table toward her. "And this?" I asked. "Does this mean anything to you?" Vanessa's eyes widened, her confident mask slipping. She picked it up, scanning it quickly. The color drained from her face. She looked up at me, trying to force a laugh, but it faltered. You can't," she stammered, her voice shaky now. "I'm not here for money, Vanessa," I said, my tone calm but firm. "I'm here so you can take responsibility. You owe Lily an apology. You need to own up to the way you treated her. Publicly, so she knows you understand the pain you caused. That's what matters." She shook her head violently, her face hardening again. "You think you can ruin me? I'll spin this any way I want. You won't get away with it." I leaned back, keeping my composure. "I don't need to spin anything. The truth is enough. People will see it for themselves. And Lily will see it too. I'm giving you the chance to do what's right, Vanessa. But if you refuse, the consequences won't be pretty." She looked like she wanted to argue, to throw insults or threats, but I stayed silent. I didn't need to yell, didn't need to beg or fight. My calmness was more powerful than any shouting could have been. I stood up slowly, gathering my bag. "Think about it," I said quietly. "Think about how you've treated her, and how you want to move forward. I'm done talking for now." Vanessa sat there, pale and frozen, staring at the table. I walked out, my heart steady, my mind sharp. I wasn't done, not by a long shot. But for now, I had delivered the first move. The confrontation had begun, and she could no longer hide behind her smiles, her lies, or her carefully built image that I spent the next few days thinking carefully about my next move. Confronting Vanessa directly hadn't worked. She refused to admit anything and was ready to spin her lies. I needed a way to make the truth undeniable. Finally, I decided to send a copy of the forged will anonymously to Grant's legal department. I didn't want to reveal myself yet. I just wanted the truth to reach someone who mattered. It wasn't long before the consequences began. Grant received the documents and, at first, couldn't believe what he was seeing. He confronted Vanessa at their home, calm at first, then furious as the depth of her deception became clear. The woman he thought he knew, the mother of his child, the wife who had presented the perfect life. She had lied, manipulated, and stolen what belonged to Harper. The confrontation escalated quickly, and by the end of the week, their marriage was effectively over. Divorce papers were drawn, and the family home became a battleground of truth and betrayal. The unraveling didn't stop there. Friends and neighbors, once eager to praise Vanessa for her perfect life, began to distance themselves. Whispers followed her wherever she went, questions about her character rising as pieces of the truth leaked through the social circles. The admiration she had relied on for years crumbled. People realized that behind the flawless photos and elegant smiles, Vanessa had hidden cruelty, manipulation, and lies. The social status she had built so carefully was slipping through her fingers, faster than she could grasp. Her carefully curated image of perfection started to crack. The house, once a symbol of success and admiration, now felt like a prison to her. Grant's departure left her exposed, and the people who had once envied her now looked at her with quiet judgment. Her daughter, Aubrey, began to notice subtle changes too. Tension in the house, hushed conversations, and a mother no longer in control. The life Vanessa had boasted about to everyone else was falling apart, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Then one evening, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Vanessa, tear-streaked and desperate. "Please, please stop," she whispered, her voice breaking. Her once confident eyes were now wide with fear and pleading. She reached out, as if begging for mercy or understanding. I stood silently, listening. I didn't move closer, didn't offer comfort. Her tears and apologies didn't touch me the way they once might have. Years of cruelty, the pain she had caused Lily, and the lies she had woven made it impossible to feel sympathy. I could see the brokenness in her, the consequences of her own actions, and I remained cold. I closed the door slowly, letting her stand there in the fading light. She had unleashed this storm herself. I had only exposed it, and as the door clicked shut, I felt a quiet sense of justice. Vanessa's world had begun to crumble, and for once, the truth was louder than any carefully painted smile. A few days after the collapse of Vanessa's carefully constructed life, I agreed to meet her one last time. It wasn't to fight, it wasn't to argue, and it wasn't to humiliate her further. It was to make sure she understood something important, that this wasn't about revenge anymore. I wanted her to see the consequences of her actions clearly, and for her to understand the impact they had, especially on Lily. She arrived, looking fragile and weary, no longer the confident woman who had laughed at Lily in the closet. Her eyes darted nervously as I gestured for her to sit. I remained calm, my voice steady but firm. "Vanessa, I want you to understand something. This isn't revenge. This is consequence. Every cruel word you spoke, every action you took to hurt others has a cost." Her lips trembled, but she didn't respond. I continued, letting the silence stretch between us so my words could sink in. "You raised Aubrey in the same way. You taught her that appearances are more important than kindness. You showed her that cruelty is acceptable if it serves your image. And now, she mirrors what you've done, without even realizing it. You've created the same patterns in your own child that you tried to impose on Lily." Vanessa flinched slightly, the weight of my words pressing down on her. She had finally started to see the reflection of herself in someone she loved. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, her voice shaky. I shook my head gently. "Intentions don't erase actions. Lily was hurt, Harper was wronged, and your life has consequences for what you've done. But I'm not here to crush you further. I'm here to make sure you understand that your choices shape more than your own life. They ripple outward, touching the people around you, especially children." Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of true remorse. She wanted to fix things, but some things couldn't be fixed with apologies. Some lessons had to be learned the hard way. I leaned back, my expression softening just slightly. I will forgive you one day, Vanessa. But Lily doesn't have to, and that's the part you need to understand. She deserves to be safe from cruelty, to grow without the weight of your judgments and selfishness. Vanessa looked down, silent, tears streaking her face. She nodded slowly, finally absorbing the truth I had tried to convey. Her perfect world had been stripped away, and now she faced the person she had become and the reflection of herself she had passed to her daughter. It was a painful, necessary reckoning. She stood after a long pause and walked to the door. Before leaving, she glanced at me, her eyes filled with something between sorrow and resignation. Then she stepped out, leaving me alone in the quiet room. I watched her go, knowing that while she was broken and alone, the lesson had been delivered. This wasn't about revenge. It was about understanding the consequences of cruelty and ensuring that Lily, my daughter, would never have to inherit the same pain. The sun was warm that spring morning as Lily and I set up our little booth at the local art fair. Paints, brushes, and small canvases were scattered across the table, and Lily's face glowed with excitement. She had spent weeks preparing, mixing colors, and planning the little scenes she wanted to paint. Today, it wasn't about perfection or appearances. It was about joy, creativity, and freedom. As she dipped her brush into bright blue paint, I watched her work, noticing the concentration and care in every stroke. The confidence in her movements was new, something I hadn't seen in months. The events of last year, the party, Vanessa's cruelty, and the hidden battles had left their marks, but now I could see them healing. Lily was discovering that her worth wasn't tied to someone else's opinion, that she could create, laugh, and shine without fear. People wandered past, admiring the paintings and chatting with the young artists. I stayed close, smiling quietly as Lily offered her painted miniatures to anyone who showed interest. She was thriving, and it was a joy to see her embrace herself fully. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a familiar figure, Aubrey, walking slowly past the rows of booths. She looked quieter than I had ever seen her, shoulders slightly hunched, her usual confident smile gone. Her eyes met Lily's for a brief moment, and I could see the recognition there. She approached cautiously, as if stepping into new territory. I'm sorry," Aubrey whispered, her voice low and sincere. She didn't linger. She turned and walked away, leaving Lily standing there with a small, thoughtful smile. I felt my chest tighten. The apology, simple as it was, carried weight. It wasn't just words. It was acknowledgement of past wrongs, the beginning of humility, and perhaps the start of change. I realized that Lily's growth, her confidence, and her freedom to express herself had created ripples beyond our little world. Even Aubrey, who had once made my daughter feel small and invisible, was now seeing the consequences of her own actions. Lily looked up at me, her smile radiant and unforced. "Mom, look. I finished the sky," she exclaimed, holding up a canvas filled with swirling colors that seemed almost magical in the sunlight. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, not from sadness but from relief, pride, and a deep sense of peace. For the first time in a long time, I understood the real meaning of justice. It wasn't in revenge, it wasn't in payback or humiliation. It was in protecting my daughter, in giving her the space to grow, and in breaking a cycle of cruelty that had been passed down through generations. Watching her smile freely, seeing her confidence blossom, I knew that the lessons she learned, the strength she gained, and the happiness she reclaimed were far more powerful than any retaliation I could have ever imagined. I squeezed her hand gently, whispering softly to myself. I thought revenge would make me feel better, but seeing my daughter smile freely, that was the real justice. And as Lily returned to her painting, laughing softly at a small mistake she decided to keep, I knew that we had both found something far more valuable than revenge. We had found freedom, healing, and a future full of possibility. Here's a fully reworded version for your story. What would you have done if you were Harper? Stand by and let things slide, or take a stand for your child no matter what? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, so share them in the comments below. And if you love heart-touching stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story.